Glad you're here. It's about time you got here. I was just looking through one of my books that I enjoyed reading in the past, and sometimes it's fun to look over books that you've read before. This one is called The Midnight Gang. It's by the same author as our Codename Bananas. It follows the story of some sick kids in a hospital. It's actually really funny, and it's a really good story, especially if you're loving the story we're reading now, Codename Bananas. Now today, we are on chapter 22, and as always, it's important to pay close attention so you can answer those questions at the end with complete sentences and restate the question. All right, let's get started with chapter 22, The Plan. The pair didn't have long. It was now mid-morning, and even though Eric was supposed to be at school, there was something infinitely more important than to do algebra. Saving his best friend from certain death. "Every military operation needs a code name," began the old soldier. "Hush," was one I remember from the First World War. "What should we call ours?" Eric thought for a moment. "Bananas." "You what?" "Code name Bananas." The old man wasn't convinced, but he didn't have a better idea. "Well, I suppose Gertrude does like bananas. And what are we trying to do is bananas." "You are right. Let's get to work." First, Sid ordered the boy to fetch some paper and pencils from the drawer. Then the pair began sketching out a giant map of the zoo from memory. Together they could remember every pathway and animal enclosure. Next they pinned the map to the wall. Now they had a view of the exits and entrances, and, of course, the location of the gorilla cage. As the animals trotted back into the kitchen, one by one, having been fed, Sid and Eric used the map to dream up a number of plans to rescue Gertrude, each one wilder than the last. Number 1. The pair disguise themselves as gorillas. Then they break into Gertrude's cage. There they stay until the zoo closes. When they reveal themselves to Gertrude and break out, this had one big flaw. Someone was bound to notice that there were 3 gorillas in the cage and not 1. Number 2. They commandeer a Royal Navy ship from the Thames and sail up the canal and back onto the zoo. Next, they blast a hole in the fence with the torpedo and snatch Gertrude. Then they make their escape through London's network of canals. This could be the perfect plan, if not for the one little thing: they didn't have a warship. Number 3. They dig a tunnel all the way from Sid's back garden to Gertrude's cage. Then they could smuggle the gorilla down the tunnel to safety. But it was many miles from Sid's house to London, and digging a tunnel would take a number of years. Sadly, they didn't have years to save Gertrude, just a few hours. Number 4. The pair pretend to be the king and queen on the royal visit to London Zoo. Once inside, they say that they want to keep Gertrude as a souvenir of their visit. However, there was no chance these two could pass themselves off as royalty, however hard they tried. Sid and Eric, King George VI and Queen Elizabeth. Number 5. They build themselves a giant paper plane. They launch themselves from the domed roof of the St. Paul's Cathedral, the tallest building in London. From there they swoop down over Gertrude's cage and snatch her into the air. The problem was, they'd used all the paper to draw the map of the zoo. Number 6. They make a dummy gorilla and smuggle it into the zoo. Once inside, when no one is looking, they swap the dummy gorilla for Gertrude before making their escape. The big issue here was that they didn't have a dummy gorilla. With neither being good at arts and crafts, they also didn't have the faintest idea how to make one. Number 7. They smuggle themselves into the zoo in sacks of food. Once inside the zoo, they cut themselves out of the sacks, find Gertrude, and make a run for it. The sticking point here is that they might very well find themselves being fed to a lion instead, which, although nice for the lion, would not be so nice for them. Roar! Number 8. They borrow uniforms from Bessie and pose as a pair of doctors. They rush into the zoo carrying a stretcher. If anyone stops them, they say they've been called to help a sick visitor, but instead smuggle Gertrude out onto the stretcher under the sheet and bundle her into the back of the ambulance. One big problem: they didn't have an ambulance. Number 9. They make the world's tallest pole vault by strapping a dozen or so walking sticks to one another. Then they pole vault over the fence of the zoo and, on the other side, break the gorilla out of her cage. This idea was dismissed as fast as it had been dreamed up. There was a very good chance the boy would break both his legs upon landing. This wasn't such an issue for Sid, what with his 10 legs, but pole vaulting at his age did not appeal at all. Number 10. They steal a tank and smash through the fence of the zoo. Then they blast a hole in Gertrude's enclosure, scoop her up, and speed out. If anyone tries to stop them, they could spin the big gun in their direction, and kaboom! There was one teeny-weeny problem. This was very, 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 very dangerous. What seemed like hours had passed, and the pair still did not have a plan. It wasn't until Eric was idly staring out of the window that an idea finally hit him. Like most great ideas, it was so bonkers it was brilliant. "Bingo!" exclaimed Eric. "Bingo, bingo! What are you on about, boy?" asked Sid. "I've got it!" "Got what?" "The plan!" Sid clattered over to the window to see what the boy was staring at in the sky. Clink, clank, clunk. "You don't mean we use a..." began the old man. "Yes! A barrage balloon!" Classified. Part 3. Never surrender. And that's going to do it today for Chapter 22. Now remember to go in and answer those questions with complete sentences. Restate the question, and if you remember, we taught you how to copy and paste the question where you just have to change the words and make it your answer. All right, have a great rest of your day. We'll see you tomorrow for Chapter 23.